Okay, chapter 17, the book of Luke. Take a look at verse 19 now. Arise, go thy way, thy faith hath made thee whole. What's going to make you whole? Faith. Obviously, something has divided that in the past, and that this faith aspect of spiritual knowledge, of course, as we see, has been denied. What's been offered is the material fact in its place. And you can understand in perspective of what Jesus Christ is talking about from the verses before and after the single line right here. As we know what he starts speaking about in verse 20, the kingdom of God cometh not with observation. Well, as it was in the beginning, so shall it be in the end. What beginning are we talking about? Well, the beginning of sin. And so in relative fashion of everything that he's saying, it's in perspective of this original division that's taken place, that has made a continuing portion of mankind to become not whole. And Jesus Christ says, hey, it's faith that's going to do it for you. Faith in who? Faith in him. Faith in his truth to see you through. Someone has rejected this truth of him in the past, in which has created a division, and this division has manifested itself into a illusion of half-truths that are reflecting the lie portion of themselves. It's pretty cut and dry, especially as we go forward here. But it's important, you know. All of this might seem confusing, but it's important to realize that what he declares that's not confusing is that regardless of all this astronomy and physiology, his ancient history that's been hidden, what's going to make you whole is faith, not this knowledge. That's it. Doesn't matter if you were born 40,000 years ago or 40,000 years into the future. Same thing's going to make you whole. Faith, not the knowledge. The knowledge is always changing against the backdrop of the conditional environment in which it's derived. Knowledge is nothing but what's happening between you and your environment. Catalog data, that's it. And that data will change. So if you were to just look at something based upon your short lifespan that has a lot larger lifespan than you, and then you crystallize knowledge from your limited perception of it, well, then you got the doctrines of tradition of men that were limited in their sight, and that now we see those that are advanced in the potential of sight are living within limited doctrines of the traditions of men, blind men. That'll never happen if you follow Jesus Christ, because of course he is not only today but yesterday and the futures to come in its entirety. It spreads the breadth of his existence continually. And his truth is the same yesterday, today, and forever. So you'll never get caught in some cyclic pool of confusion that is hailed as some sort of abyss to reflect yourself out of. You know, you don't have to reflect yourself out of an abyss if you never found yourself going into one. But if you do follow another that is in rejection of the truth of Jesus Christ, well, you'll find yourself that is the rabbit hole which is filled with the abysmal waters of darkened truths that are now reflecting a backwards image of yourself, which has now been portrayed as godly. It's the absence of godliness, to tell you the truth. It's the very absence of it. So faith is going to be the thing that makes you whole. Yesterday, today, tomorrow, forever. My point is to notice that it's about a division. This division is based upon knowledge, which was then distorted in essence of the observer's view as he sought to acquire it. And that would be the apple. That's temptation. It's in perspective here as we go down. That's my point. Is to see that he's not just talking about something that is happening at that single moment. He's talking about the single moment of the entirety of what's happening. the confusion of our world, just the complete chaos of it, as it just hollers out every bit of emergency that it's experiencing, is the proof of it. It's a 9/11. It's an emergency here. There's no doubt about it. So, the kingdom of God cometh not with observation. Obviously, we see that the observer has been distorted. The image is backward, and then that backward image is now manifest, and people adhere to it in essence as it's the truth. So as we come down here to verse 23, of course, read all this for yourself. We've gone over it from other videos. You should be familiar with it. The days will come when ye shall desire to see one of the days of the Son of Man, and ye shall not see it. Verse 23, and they shall say to you, see here or see there, go not after them, nor follow them. Who's saying this? Well, it's not his, okay? It's not his that understand the truth of the kingdom of God. He's saying, my true shall not say, my messengers, my disciples shall not say, lo here or lo there, okay? In this time, because that's the time that we're talking about. As it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be also in the days of the Son of Man, when he's revealed. So the kingdom of God is within you. That is what his true messengers are revealing, that you do not have to run off to anywhere to experience the kingdom of God. You might be running off somewhere to experience a fabrication of the kingdom of heaven created by men, which in reality is just the fullness of the illusion of the ancient past of our supposed great cities. And we find that illusion is kept alive on the dark side of the moon. Okay, as above, so too, as below, so too above. As above, so too below. It's the same thing that we have here. They've just hidden it now and put it there. It was in reflection of our historical past. Now that's destroyed, denied from men. The knowledge has been taken. It's been coveted. It's been hid. It's been put on the dark side of the moon. And there is where their supposed grandeur and beauty is, where nobody can see it. The hanging gardens of Babylon, the whole nine. It's all right there. Okay? So we know where the kingdom of God is. It's emanating from within us. Therefore, we don't need to jump on any plane or bus or rocket ship to get there. And therefore, we're never, if the shadow follows the substance, Jesus Christ is not a substance that puts you in his shadow. Jesus Christ is like the sun that emanates no shadows. So therefore, if you find yourself a shadow that is following a substance, guess what? You're following a material thing. That's what it means. Okay? These shadows are following material things. They don't know the truth of Jesus Christ. Therefore, they're put into the shadow. And as you see, when they are standing in front of this being, looking at him, guess what? The light's behind, is it not? And then the shadow is the projection. So, yeah, the shadows will always follow the substance. This is their substance, not Jesus Christ. Because if you follow Jesus Christ, you're the light, because you are basking in his light, not in his shadow, just as the sun does not have a dark side. Okay? So yeah, the shadows will always follow the substance. And in this essence, the fullness of this substance is the material lie. That is what the shadow is fixed upon. But see, the material lie has on the reverse side a spiritual truth that is being held from you, just as it's being shown to you here within this pyramid. If there is a spiritual truth that the material lie is blocking. And then now, as they seek to find the spiritual truth, looking towards the material object, all they find is the experience of the glare, okay, which causes you to squint and only look with one eye once again. So don't be in the shadow, If you find yourself a shadow or in the shadow, guess what? You're not following Jesus Christ. Okay, you're following a substance. Sub is below. It's less. It's beneath. Okay? And a stance in this essence is a stance. substance, because the substance represents the material matter which is projected by the light. Instead, follow that which is not the matter which has been projected, but instead that which is projecting the matter. And that's the Spirit. You follow the Spirit, can't be in darkness. Can't be in the shadow, ever. You can only be basking in the light. You put your little hoodie on, you put your shades on, that's showing that you cannot handle that light. You can't handle it at all. You've got to still bring yourself back into the shadow, because you are covering and cowering from this light. All right? And that's, once again, that's because they have a substance form of what the light is, and that's material. And the light is not material in its spiritual form, only in its material translation. Only in its material acquisition do we understand that light itself is matter-based, because it has weight. But that's not telling you from which this light is coming from in the spirit. The light and the matter, it's only a hyper projection of the consistent truths of the spiritual light that is now manifest and translated into the same consistency of truth into the material light. As I said, the sun has not a dark side, neither does Jesus Christ. But yet Jesus Christ is not the sun at the center of our solar system. He is the sun at the center of our soul system, the system of our soul. But you see, it's in reflection of the same type of central system which beckons and pulls life ever forward, ever into the realms of progress, which is bringing it from the material shadow and the covetousness of the substance. So if you find yourself admitting that you are the shadow, but yet at the same time saying you follow Jesus Christ, well, you're not following Jesus Christ, because Jesus Christ is not matter, nor is he the substance of matter. But he is the upholder and the projector of the light, which in essence, as it comes down into material form, is translated as such. So, much more to say. Much more to say. So, verse 23, pretty important. And they shall say to you, see here or see there, go not after them nor follow them. Well, there's the division right there. Verse 23 is telling you that those that are divided and are following material substance in the shadow of it, they're consistent even with the number 23. As we're going to see, it's the 23 Enigma. And they shall say to you, see here or see there, go not after them nor follow them, because they're coveting the substance. And they are the shadow. They're in its shadow. This is where you can see the basis for the division. One side is saying, we know where the substance is, but unfortunately we're in the shadow of it, but yet we're still going to follow it. And then the other is saying, nope, don't go over there or don't go here, because the kingdom of God is within you, and within you, if you are seeking the kingdom of God, is no shadow. Therefore, you're not coveting the substance. You're not coveting the material. So, basically it comes out to where verse 23 is basically telling us what this other side is all about. Okay, they're all about the material substance as the acquisition of knowledge to God, which that God would be themselves. And he's saying, look, this kingdom isn't come with observation, and those that are supposedly observing it are looking through one eye, blind in the other, and at the same time they're reflecting their own backward image in a mirror and believing it as some sort of God. It's really just themselves in reflection of the distortion, not of the truth. Pretty simple, it covers from the beginning to the end. It has to cover from this beginning of the division. Jesus Christ sees it all, and he can speak about it all at one time, but it's just getting your mind to be able to do that and receive it. So let's take a look at verse 23 a little closer here. As I said, I want you to notice something. Jesus Christ is speaking about those on verse 23 that are telling us, see here or see there. He says, go not after them. Well, we put this pyramidal form right here, and guess what? It's perfectly on the 23-degree line. Perfectly. Notice that even the shadow side of the pyramid is in correct relationship to exactly what we've been talking about in going to the dark side of the moon and going to the left hemisphere of the brain, which is the darkened material fact, which represents this substance which they are in the shadow of. Notice that. Notice that at exactly the very point of this symbol here, which is of that left eye illuminated club, if you will, what do we have perfectly in relationship? The 23, it's the pinnacle of genetics being brought to the top once again. The pinnacle of the genetics being brought to the top again. Who did I tell you was the pinnacle of the genetic as far as this plan was concerned? Well, it's the fallen prince. It's Enki, the Nahesh. It's Horus, the darkened right eye, which is seeking to come into material form. Well, that's the plan how to do it right there. So Jesus is basically speaking to anybody that has got eyes to see and takes his word seriously, can tell you exactly who are the ones that are telling you that this kingdom of God is here, that they're a part of it, that there's some special bride being unified with it. Only thing they're being unified is their own darkened self, in deception to supposedly some sort of great God, which by his own imagery is also darkened, which means matter, over and over and over again. Jesus says don't follow them. Okay, verse 23. Pretty much it's pretty basic, to tell you the truth. As astounding as it all is from the directions that it comes from, but once you bring it all together and see it as the one thing, I mean, it's like, it's so in your face that a 10-year-old could understand this if it wasn't fractured and if it wasn't denied to you by the educational system and then basically institutionalized, dogmatized, based upon ancient traditions of other men that were still blind. And then you introduce that as the educational system, guess what? Nobody sees. Everybody's blinded. Nobody's making connections. Basically, everybody's going down individual streets that all have a dead end. You know? What you got to realize is that the majority of people are already at the dead end, and they should be trying to come back towards the center of all things, which is the truth of all things, not themselves. The truth of all things is not yourself. You're the product of the truth of all things, which has manifested as a self that has the free will to seek that central truth again, even though it's on the outskirts of the material matter. It's on the periphery of the substance, being given the choice to come out of the shadow or to continually covet it and be there forever. And in some instances, marry that darkness, which is oblivion, annihilation, non-existence. If that's what you're really trying to do, I don't know. So, you know, as we said before, we got to start thinking about things that happened with the planet in the past. The planet was knocked in the past, right? Okay. Ancient times, supposedly some sort of extraterrestrial force, not meaning aliens, but meaning planetary bodies, star system, if you will, had intruded upon our system solar. And it caused retrograde motion within our solar system, collisions, and even destructions of planets and moons. Now we have, as a result, the telltale signs of retrograde motion, the asteroid belt, which is the breaking up of where a fifth planet would have been. So, yeah, we know that something has happened in the past, but as we see, we can see the continuation of that echo into the present. So if we talk about something knocking our Earth into the past, well, we can see now in relative fashion that the Earth is revolving on an axis of rotation that is based upon a 23-degree tilt. A 23-degree tilt. That's right. So we see that the equator of the Earth, based upon this axis of rotation up against the ecliptic of the sun, is how we measure the 23-degree tilt in the axis of the Earth. So the equator of the Earth is not here. That's the ecliptic of the sun, which will be the plane of Earth's orbit around the sun. Okay, so as I said, would be this line known as the ecliptic, in which the planets and the astrological signs that have been chosen within this plane are upon. Okay, so now you see what the ecliptic is: the plane of Earth's orbit around the sun. It's the plane of the planetary system of our solar system around the sun. Okay, that plane there. Now, just by simply setting this triangular shape here on top of the ecliptic line, gave us the degree of 23, and then put the point exactly on top of that pyramid point itself, almost capping the stone, if you will. How amazing is that? It's incredibly amazing, to tell you the truth, because it reveals everything that Jesus is talking about, who was following the substance entrapped in its shadow. So now, let's go ahead and see this just as the Earth itself. And then now we see the axis of rotation, which is up against the ecliptic of the sun. Okay, and this is how we can tell it's 23 degrees. So you can see this both as the sun featuring the ecliptic, and then the Earth up against the ecliptic of the sun featuring the 23 degree tilt in its axis. Okay? So as you should understand, this is now consistent with the path of travel to the left hemisphere of the brain, which we said is chiefly material, which is blinded by its own material shadow of existence. In other words, ye are gods, or better understood, ye are darkness. And no light is found within you if you seek to reflect that darkness once again, create the image of nothingness, of which you believe that's where you came, but in reality, you came from the everythingness, the all of everything, which is not nothing. It's paradise. Paradise is certainly not non-existent. It's certainly not a nothing substance in which all things were derived. No, that's just a miscalculation of man's mind as he's tried to interpret his spiritual creation from a material thing, in which paradise is not material, in which everything else is actually the shadow extension of the potential of what paradise is, if it could be seen correctly, not from a material point of view, but as you are on the outskirts of it, the periphery of it, immersed in the shadow, being beckoned out of it by the light, as long as you're looking once again to a material thing as the center of your focus, you're in its shadow. You're in its shadow. There's just more than enough to be said that can say it all, if you can hear it. If you can hear it. So, you just really, really, really need to realize that this is your sacred feminine concept. This is your bride. This is your would-be gods. This is everything that they're focused upon, which is not the truth. And it tells it to you right here. It literally tells it to you right here. This little bit of information completes the entirety of the whole thing that we're talking about. And it's so simple, but for whatever reason, many people are still going to refuse it. Because they, the higher you get indoctrinated into these mystery religions, the less chance it is that you're ever going to be able to come out of it. Because you are supposedly being given a goal, and the closer you get to it, the more, I'd say, fanatical you are about it. And the more willing you are to do anything to get it. Especially as we see murder, So the 23 Enigma is pretty simple. And they shall say to you, see here, see there, go not after them, nor follow them. Well, we're not going to follow them to the dark side. We're not going to go after them. Pretty incredible. And even the next line, for as the lightning that lighteneth out of the one part under heaven shineth unto the other part of heaven, so shall also the Son of Man be in his day. Okay, from one part to the other, it's going to be light, not darkness. So, before we go forward here, if we have time, we're going to return to this line here. And as it was in the days of Noah, so shall it also be in the days of the Son of Man. It's basically what's being said as you read forward. Incredible. Verse 23 clarifies that this kingdom's not come with observation. Basically makes the statement here about faith is the thing that's going to make you whole. You know, not faith in yourself. That's for sure. Now, there's no problem with having faith in yourself if you know where that faith itself is centered upon, which is not the self, which is the truth of Jesus Christ. So you must have faith in yourself to recognize the truth of Jesus Christ and to go forward with it. Yeah, you have faith in yourself in that aspect. But faith in yourself as the Christ itself is actually the delusion and the lie. We're to be Christ-like, but yet we don't attain the image of Christ in the person of ourselves. That's something that you work on for an eternity. Okay? And it's something that you never become Christ. You actually become more the potential of what Christ has given you, and that's to be his child. And if you are his child, in eternity, that will forever be as it was yesterday, as it is today, and so shall it be forever. We will always be the children of this Father, which will always be infinitely much more wise than us as he leads us through the university schooling of his own creation. You know? Yes, we are given inheritances, but the inheritance that we're given is in the perspective of what you would receive from your earth parents. Okay, we receive a portion of their kingdom, so to say. And you cannot receive a portion of this kingdom until you yourself has mastered the first portion that's come out of that kingdom, and that would be yourself. It's better for a man to conquer himself or to control himself than it is for a king to conquer many countries. So that's the first thing we got to work on. Not really conquering each other, but conquering yourself. And that would be your animal tendency, your animal urges. That is the base form of the self, which is the shadow material matter. You know, and that's what you're seeking to conquer, that material urge to covet itself as the source of self, in which it's not. So, you know, let's take a perspective down here. This is really pretty intense here. Verse 31, in that day he which shall be upon the housetop and his stuff in the house, let him not come down to take it away. And he that is in the field, let him likewise not return back. You should know that that field is Shinar, it's the moon. It's their field of dreams. It's the potter's field, and which is symbolic of what the Israelite priest did with 30 pieces of silver that Jesus Christ was sold into crucifixion from by Judas. Okay, so these 30 pieces of silver were used to secure a piece of land by the priest of Israel called the potter's field. This potter field is a cemetery. It's a grave, and this is what Jesus Christ means when he's talking about the scribes and the Pharisees, the Sadducees, as being dead men, that people are literally walking over and around without being aware. And as you should know, that this priest caste system is alive and well in the manifestation of these Elites, or the Illuminated, the Illuminati. They are all working towards a priest caste system of themselves in reflection of that ancient priest caste system of the past. So basically, you know, this field, he that is in the field, let him likewise not return back. Well, don't return back to this moon place, okay, this field of dreams, because it is the new Babylon. Okay, everything that we have here, they say, as above, so too below. Okay, well, let's put it into perspectives of God. Okay, as above, so too below. Moon don't look too much like the earth to me. So in perspective of how God is created, that does not jive out in its close-knit particle association. It will jive out in multi-billion form particles as they evolve outward into different systems solar, as they are a reflection of the projection of light from paradise itself. But in the first two particles, close in their connection as a nucleus and what atomically surrounds it, okay, as we see as the planets and moons, or as below, so to above, no, it's not. Material shadow, yes. So the material shadow that has been formed on this world by the altered manifestation of the shadow as being the perspective of the truth is now what is as above, so to below on the other side of the moon. So as I said, you want to know where the technology has gone. You want to know where, where their glory, their grandeur is, where their megalithic anything is. It's on the dark side of the moon. That's what's there. So this is what he's saying. He that is in the field, let him likewise not return back. Do not return back to this Sodom, Egypt, Babylon, all united as this grandeur of glory from our ancient world, which has been hidden from the modern world and rebuilt on the dark side of the moon. So as he says, verse 32, remember Lot's wife. In perspective now, that as they know this is all about to be destroyed, but they're not turning to the spirit again. What are they doing? They're returning back to the material shadow. The very same material shadow that's here, that has just been doubled, and now in essence manifested on the dark side of the moon. This is what he means to the symbolism of Lot's wife, because as she did look back at that grandeur of what she did covet, guess what? Turned to stone. Well, as they turn back after they've been warned to that same grandeur, as we see, the warning is turn to stone. By their own symbolisms as what they seek to do to us. And this will be in perspective, believe it or not, don't let me confuse you here, about a second sun that is not coming from the orbital planet of Nibiru, which is a dwarf star which is emitting no light. How can the dwarf star be a second sun if it emits no light? Huh? Its gravity is too great for light to escape. Okay? How can it? It can't. It's BS. So they're going to create a second sun, and that would be either Jupiter or Saturn. My dollar is on Jupiter. They are going to ignite Jupiter, and this is where I believe that they believe they will be in the bright side, which is now the dark side of the moon. They will be on the bright side of their secondary sun by choice, which they have formed with their own hands once again and created. Another super idol, if you will. And I believe that this is what is going to ultimately cause major drama. Their water not to evaporate. Yeah, right. You've made some major miscalculations on solar radiation that is not from the perspective of our sun, but from the perspective of a gaseous giant other one. Anyway, without going into that too much, we will see quite possibly that they ignite Jupiter, as NASA has already hinted to in the past, recorded in saying, as they were bringing plutonium to the surface and letting it explode upon the surface of Jupiter, they were overheard in saying that they believe they can ignite the entirety of Jupiter at one time. Well, if that would happen, guess what? Second sun in the sky. And if you didn't know it was Jupiter, you might just think that it was that Nibiru that rolled through, right? You can see how this comes together. So if Nibiru was, in Sumerian language, Nibiru is really Jupiter. Well, that makes a whole lot of effing sense, doesn't it? Doesn't it? So remember Lot's wife, you know? Whosoever shall seek to save his life shall lose it. What are they seeking to save their life from? From here, this destruction that's coming. So they're seeking to save it by going to the dark side of the moon, which is once again just the darkened matter. Okay, and then that has all of the same ancient grandeur and glory of a supposed golden age that they have subscribed to in their theology and their philosophies, and they're running off back to it. Once again, that material grandeur, all that glitters is not gold. So whosoever to seek his life shall lose it. In other words, these are those that are returning back and forth from that field that are then promising those that are in the field here that they got somewhere to go if they just do this work. But we know that they're being deceived, and as we find out that that kingdom is divided. Whosoever shall seek to save his life shall lose it, and whosoever shall lose his life shall preserve it. Verse 33. Verse 33. What we're going to see here is something amazing take place. He talks about two groups, or three groups of two individuals in each group. 34, I tell you, in that night there shall be two men in one bed. The one shall be taken, the other shall be left. 35, two women shall be grinding together. The one shall be taken, the other left. 36, two men shall be in the field. The one shall be taken, the other left. Is he not talking about a divided kingdom, right? That is not made whole by faith. Absolutely is. He is talking about even their own kingdom, which is further divided again. As he describes, Satan's kingdom is divided. If it's divided, how shall his house stand? Well, as I said, with one of the fours, they eliminate only to reflect themselves. This will be the division of that takes place here. I want you to see here that it starts off, once again, 3 and 3. All right? And then we see 1, 2, 3 verses that start off with 3, 3, and 3. You look here at the last 6 and 6, 3 and 3. 5 plus 4 is 9, 3, 3, 3. In other words, it's 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, all the way up. All the way up. Same thing over and over again. So 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, all the way up. Pretty interesting, because their doctrines are based upon Gospel of Thomas, which would be 3, 3, 3. All right, which is all about them becoming gods, right? I want you to notice here that line 34 reveals something pretty interesting about this kingdom here that is divided. There's going to be two men in one bed. That doesn't sound like the bride church to me. Okay, two men in one bed. This is representative of their sex magic cults, in which they're joining the two power centers together, masculine to masculine. These two men in one bed will reflect the lowest to the highest of those interpretations, in which I said the highest begins to represent those two left-hand brains that are in bed together. So next we get two women shall be grinding together. Remember, this is not the past. This is a reflection of the past as into the future. If we're talking about the ancient times of Sodom and all of these things that were going on with this destruction takes place, well, look what we got here. Two women shall be grinding together. Grinding is not talking about meal. It's, in essence, you've got to realize it's in the same perspective of the two men that are in bed together. Now we have two women that are lovers of themselves together. All right? So it's pretty easy to see from which kingdom these are being pulled from here, that are being brought to Shinar. But Jesus is trying to warn them that, hey, you are all being deluded. You are all being deluded, and that you are going to be further divided, and that most of you have just been used as a tool to deceive the masses. So we get two men shall be in a field, the one shall be taken, the other shall be left. Notice that this field is different from this original field up here. Okay, now we're talking about the other pasture land of Ephraim, which represents the field of this world. These are the workers that are doing the work in this field. As we see, half of those will be left behind. Half of those will be left behind. So yeah, we're definitely talking about a major kingdom that has been divided, that has no faith, that is obsessed with this darkened path of this darkened temptation of knowledge, representative of the 23 Enigma, which is the two-thirds more genetic materials offered to the offspring from the female than from the male. And that creates the rights of succession, and which is how kings rule upon this world, and it's the root for the obsession with the bloodlines, how to track it and to preserve it. So whosoever shall seek to save his life shall lose it. And then he gives you the rundown of who these are that are being taught to save their life from this coming destruction, which is based upon propaganda deception manifested from temptation. Three categories, 2 groups each. Notice that it's a 2-to-1 ratio, 2 men to 1 woman, to 1 woman. 2-to-1 ratio. So this sacred feminine is not as feminine, at least in the feminine, more or less in the masculine as feminine. So once again, the females are being used, as they always have, by the masculine powers of this world. Of course, they had to lift them up on a pedestal to get them to be a part of this, so that then more kingdoms could be divided upon this diva type attitude that's been given to the present generation of females in this world. So guys, now we just simply go back here and let's just break it down and see how simple it is. We have 2 groups here, 3 and 3. And as we see, 2 men in 1 bed, 2 women grinding, and then 2 men in a field. All right. It says 1 is going to be left behind of each of these groups. You must understand that this group represents that 44%. So, as I said, the 44% is being further divided, that it's going to be lifted to only 1 of these 4s. Okay? To only 1 of these 4s. Looking at it in the perspective here of the 33, which is representing what? I mean, it's representing this enlightened degree of Freemasonry, of the mystery religions, that is based upon the death of Jesus Christ. But in their reality, it's the birth of themselves from it. Jesus is saying that kingdom is divided, and that a portion of the 44%, half of them, are going to be left behind. As I said, you got to start doing the math and realize all these million, billion, trillion dollar companies, countries, businesses, organizations. You think that these people ain't got their spot up there, and that just some of you cats running around here that have been fooled by a few simple channels into making you think that you're God, you got a place up there on Shinar? No, you don't. No, you don't. They are stingy. They are selfish. And I'm telling you what, they are seeking to wipe many of you out. Many of you out. And I'm just trying to help you see here before you make the biggest mistake of your death. Not the biggest mistake of your life. It's going to bring you to death. All that have life now see death. You know? You don't have to. So the ratio goes from now, man to woman is a 2-to-1 ratio. All right? If we go to Luke chapter 22, verse 31, 2 plus 2 is 4, 3 plus 1 is 4, 4 and 4 again. What does Jesus tell us here? Satan hath desired to have you, that he may sift you as the wheat. And this is in reference to the parable of the wheat and the tares. As we see, Satan is seeking to first divide the wheat, his own wheat from amongst his own wheat, which represents the tares from amongst the tares, the cancer from amongst the cancer. And that many of these dark shadow cancer workers are going to be left behind by their very own. Jesus Christ revealed it to you. Okay, as best as I'm able to explain it to you. All right? So, and then as we see, where are these that were chosen taken to? Wheresoever the body is, thither will the eagles be gathered together. Oh, in Matthew, he calls this body a carcass. Okay, the carcass is representing basically carnal, dead flesh, no spirit. Well, that's the body right there in symbolic form, which would be Horus, which would be the darkened son of the sun. Okay, and then, as you know, further symbolage of bringing this body, this carcass, as Christ would call it, to the moon. Because the eagles have the power to flight to get there, right? To go to and fro, up and down, all over the earth. Well, that's back and forth from the moon. Wheresoever the body is, thither will the eagles be gathered together. So we know half of the eagles that have been separated here, okay, from the percentage of the 44 of that think they're going to be lifted up, only half of them, meaning 1/4, and then they try to mirror the other half to create the illusion of wholeness, which is really the true observation of void, which is the opposite of being whole. You're just reflecting the void again, all over. So, you know, and then we get into chapter 18 where he starts talking about this unjust judge, which has been continually pestered by this widow. Well, this widow is going to get something that she wasn't prepared for once you understand what Jesus Christ describes here, and then you understand where he was between the 3 days of resurrection and crucifixion. You should know that he went to the underworld. Who was he talking to? Well, I guess many of these people will just have to see, will they not? Anyway, I'll be back.